A Fox News alert, we are just now getting reports that a magnitude 7.1 earthquake has hit southern Japan.
Let's just bring you some pictures now, just in from Japan. Another earthquake's hit the country's southwest this evening. The second quake measured 7.1 on the Richter scale, larger than the previous one. It happened near the city of Kumamoto. 3 people have died after this second earthquake. This one was very shallow, striking at a depth of only 7 kilometers, which is very close to the surface compared with many earthquakes that run along that Pacific fault. This information is coming from the U.S. Geological Survey.
We have a Fox News alert for you from Japan. That's where the U.S. Geological Survey is reporting a 7.0 magnitude earthquake just rocked the southern part of the country. After a 6.5 magnitude quake killed at least 9 people there yesterday and injured about 800 others. This 8-month-old baby girl, one of the lucky survivors. She was pulled from the rubble. Both earthquakes struck in the south. A tsunami warning also is now in effect for the local area, but not for the Hawaiian Islands or the U.S. mainland.
We have breaking news to report at this hour. A powerful earthquake that we're just hearing about, magnitude 7.1, hitting southern Japan. And what we're learning is that a tsunami advisory has been issued as well, which of course is such a dangerous situation and reminiscent of what happened in Japan not many years ago. So again, what we're learning at this hour in this new video just feeding in from NHK, 7.1 magnitude earthquake hitting Japan. We're working on getting as many details as we can. The Associated Press reporting that it happened in southern Japan, barely 24 hours after a deadly quake had hit the same region. So this is the Kumamoto region. The quake shook that region at 1:25 a.m. on Saturday. That was, I guess, last weekend. I'm just reading this cold from the Associated Press. But now, again, a new earthquake, 7.1 magnitude. Do we have anyone that we can talk with at this point? Okay. We don't have anyone we can check in with right now. We are, of course, in our control room working the phones as fast and furiously as we can, trying to get as much information as we can to you. But again, this is video that we're just seeing out of Japan. And again, all I can report at this point is that there's been an earthquake. There is potentially a warning, a tsunami advisory, it's called. And again, this is a region of the world that has seen a tsunami in the past that we all remember and did a lot of damage. So we're going to move on right now, but keep an eye on this story and go back to this just as soon as we can get you more information.
Another powerful earthquake in southern Japan. Emergency management now reporting a 7.1 magnitude rattler. It's part of tsunami advisory, which has been lifted. The quake striking the same region that suffered a 6.4 yesterday. That area feeling aftershocks now. Several deaths have been reported in this, and there is a baby who was lucky to be rescued from the rubble as well. And it's just an awful scene.
Continuing to follow that breaking news we mentioned, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake hitting southern Japan. NBC's Ayman Mohyeldin is joining me now from MSNBC headquarters in New York. He's our foreign correspondent. He's been following the details. What do we know at this hour, Ayman?
Yeah, Kate, we're getting confirmation now from the Japanese Meteorological Survey that in fact all tsunami warnings have been lifted as a result of what has happened here. So there are no advisories, or at least no urgent warnings right now, particularly pertaining to the tsunami. What we are learning, though, is this is the second earthquake to take place in Japan within the past 24 hours. The Associated Press is reporting that according to NHK, which is the Japanese broadcaster, they were receiving some reports from people being trapped inside some of the houses, some of the buildings that have collapsed as a result of this magnitude 7.0 magnitude that has been reported in Japan. Now, as we were saying, this is the second earthquake to strike the southern part of Japan in the past 24 hours. A smaller earthquake that took place yesterday resulted in the death of 9 people. This one taking place at about 1:25 a.m. local time in Japan, hitting the Kumamoto southern part of Japan. And as we were saying, it is reported now as a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. But for now, the tsunami warning that many thought was going to take place has been lifted in that part of Japan. Kate?
Include Israeli fatalities? All right, Ayman Mohadeen, thanks so much. Ayman, thank you so much.
A Fox News alert from Japan, where the U.S. Geological Survey now reporting a 7.0 magnitude earthquake rocking the southern part of the country after a 6.5 quake killed at least 9 people there yesterday and injured more than 800 others. Meteorologist Rick Reichmuth has a little more context for us. Rick?
Yeah, interesting. Generally, when you see an earthquake follow a day or two afterwards, it's an aftershock, and usually they're smaller. So it is a little bit not as common to get a stronger earthquake one day later. This is the area, the southernmost island here, or bigger, more significant island here in Japan right there. But this last one happening within the last hour. And to put this into context, this is at least 16 times stronger than the earthquake that they saw yesterday that ended up being responsible for the 19 lives and all of the damage that was done there. So think about the buildings that were weakened from yesterday's earthquake, and now you have those weakened structures now getting a much stronger earthquake today. Certainly very rough conditions going on, and a lot of scary times right here. You mentioned a tsunami. Generally, for a tsunami, you need to have an earthquake over the open ocean. The center of this one over the land here, so tsunami not a biggest concern. And you remember the big tsunami a number of years ago was up here in the northern part of Japan, and it was over a 9 strength, a 9.0 earthquake. So not as strong of one, but certainly when you see what happened yesterday, and then you get another one here just a day later, Greg, the next couple of hours are going to be very dangerous.
It has been called, the other quakes have been called a foreshock, that this was the big one. Tell us, you felt it in Tokyo?
The building shook. It wasn't a violent shaking, but it was a very slow side-to-side movement, which continued for about 1 or 2 minutes, and a lot of cracking of the walls and the fixtures as they moved around. And Tokyo is 900 kilometers away from Kumamoto, so it's quite surprising that we could feel the quake from here. But I was in Tokyo in March 2011 when the magnitude 9 quake struck. That was a much more violent and a much longer shaking than this 7.1 or 7.0 intensity quake.
And you also said that there was an earthquake warning. Tell us about what media said.
Well, there's basically a warning alert that's broadcast on all the TV channels, and a certain melody which is also broadcast on people's mobile phones, which gives people some advanced warning. It seems to be about 2 or 3 minutes warning here, but obviously the quake would have taken more time to be felt in Tokyo than directly at the epicenter. So, it did come in time in Tokyo for, people to get under a doorway or get under a table. I think in Kumamoto they probably wouldn't have less than 30 seconds warning. Certainly a big surprise to the area, suffering as it is from the quakes and aftershocks that have been hitting since Thursday.
And tell us about the nuclear power plants in the area of Kyushu Island.
I haven't got any more information on any effects of the quake, but they had been operating normally. The Sendai nuclear plant has 2 reactors, which are the only 2 that are operational in Japan. They continued after the quake on Thursday and after the aftershocks with no adverse effects. Also, the Genkai plant, which is shuttered at the moment, didn't report any problems after the quake.
We begin with breaking news. A dire situation unfolding right now in Japan. The second violent earthquake to hit there in about 24 hours, and this one is even stronger. At this hour, just after 4 a.m. Japan time, or at least where this is, an all-out race to dig survivors from the rubble. The quake measured a strong 7.0 magnitude, and to put that into perspective for you, this earthquake released 5 times as much energy as the deadly one that hit yesterday. We've been watching the news feeds coming in from Japan. Reporters at disaster scenes understandably wearing crash helmets. Even the news anchors inside the studio wearing those protective helmets to keep them safe from falling debris. Japanese news agencies are reporting calls are coming in from people trapped inside houses and inside buildings. Officials have lifted a tsunami warning, so that is at least good news in all of this. But the picture so far, like what you're looking at right now, which we've been told is a rescue in motion, a lot of damage suggested, and the potential for many more victims. We'll be following the breaking news there throughout this hour. Let's get back to the breaking news now. The powerful earthquake that hit southern Japan, magnitude 7.0 according to the U.S. Geological Survey. No word yet on the extent of the damage or the number of injuries right now. Just yesterday, as you know, we've been reporting another quake rocked that same area, killed at least 9 people, injured more than 800. Our Trace Gallagher is live on our West Coast News Hub. Now following this, Trace.
Harris, we know buildings are burning, being evacuated, trains and buses shut down, people are trapped and missing. This is a 7.0 earthquake. It comes just 24 hours. These, by the way, some of the first pictures coming into us, or the newest. 24 hours after a 6.2 earthquake struck the very same region near Kyushu. That's in the southwestern part of Japan's main islands. The facts, the quakes almost were on top of each other, and now it appears yesterday's quake may very well have been a foreshock of today's quake. And just to clarify, 7.0 is 6.5 times bigger than a 6.2 quake. It releases almost 17 times as much energy. So as you look at the pictures, keep in mind, this is catastrophic. The video just beginning to come in, buildings shaking, people scrambling to get to safety. What makes the quake even more dangerous is that it was very shallow, about 6 miles deep. That means the quake wouldn't be felt over such a wide area, but it also means there is less earth to absorb all the shock waves. I mean, picture the effects of an earthquake like when you make a bed and you shake out the bed sheet. Well, that same ripple effect is actually happening in the land. Clearly, first responders are just now starting to arrive at the hardest hit areas, but the U.S. Geological Survey says we can expect this to be a significant disaster and that Japan may need national and international response. This, by the way, the biggest quake to hit Japan since 2011, when the country was hit by that massive tsunami that killed tens of thousands. For today's quake, the tsunami warning has been canceled, but there could be dozens, if not thousands, of aftershocks in the coming hours and days. Still no word on damages or casualties, but as we get more, Harris, we will let you know.
Boy, I tell you, what you said about this being a foreshock is really interesting because we don't talk about that very often. So when you see a 6.2 as we did yesterday, a lot of times people will say, well, good, so the worst is over. But if that's a foreshock, so much worse is coming, as you've just detailed. Seismometers are recording some kind of event every 5 minutes in that part of the world, just to give people an idea of how active it is. You talk about that earthquake trace back in 2011. I mean, it happens there with a lot of regularity. A couple things I want to hit with you that are maybe silver linings in all of this. There's still a lot of people in the shelters there from yesterday.
Sure, a lot of people in shelters, and keep in mind that first foreshock of 6.2 was followed by hundreds, if not more than 1,000 other foreshocks. These were all foreshocks. They believe the 7.0 quake today was the quake itself, and now we're feeling the aftershocks. But yeah, you had 8 or 9 people killed yesterday. You had all kinds of buildings destroyed in the very same area, and so you have people being rushed to shelters today, still searching for people from yesterday's quake, and then you get hit with a quake almost on top of it. If you look at the map, you had one quake, which was a strike-slip quake, meaning the earth just did this instead of this like it normally does. Well, that means that, you know, this area is still very volatile and you could have major aftershocks in the coming hours and days. So when they're inside these buildings looking for trapped people, they have to be very leery of the fact that they could get another quake, another aftershock could bring down more rubble. So it's a very dangerous time. And as we get more pictures and more information, we'll get back to you, Harris.
Yeah, that is a very important detail about just how dangerous the rescue operations are. Good news also that no power plant problems for the plant that's not too far from there. Trace will bring you back this hour as the news warrants. Thank you.